There comes a point in every fantasy draft where you need to throw out ADP and go get your guys. Whether you're reaching 1, 2, or 5 rounds, and maybe within reason even going beyond the ADP of the final round of your draft, you'll have a much more fulfilling fantasy season if you take the guys you believe in. That doesn't mean you should eschew a fantastic value if someone falls to you in the draft, but you do not want to watch one of the guys you had confidence in get scooped up off the waiver and go on a tear for someone else's team just because the market wasn't valuing them properly. In this video series, I'm going to give you at least 5 players at each position that you can get past pick 200 that I think will provide strong ROI. I'm also going to throw in my favorite guy from the top 100 and 200 as well as some honorable mentions. I'll be using the average draft position as compiled by Fantasy Pros, which reflects an average of ESPN, CBS, Yahoo, RTS, and NFBC. That means that in some leagues, these guys may go before pick 200, but on average, they'll be available at 200 and beyond. This is geared towards your classic 5x5 roto leagues and head-to-head categories leagues. Now let's not waste any more time. For the first installment in this series, we're starting at catcher. Starting at the earliest ADP is the Angels slugging backstop Logan O'Hoppe. O'Hoppe is a former 23rd round pick by the Phillies, who the Angels acquired in the Brandon Marsh trade in 2022. It was during that season in AA that he unlocked a new level of power, slugging .544 and 447 plate appearances at AA before the Angels skipped him over AAA and straight to the majors. O'Hoppe came out of the gates on fire last year, slashing .283, .339, .547, and 59 plate appearances until he tore his labrum on April 20th. He returned well before the 6-month timetable that surgery typically comes with and still hit for tremendous power over 140 plate appearances from August onwards, slashing .217, .279, .481. The average and OBP look worrisome, but there wasn't anything meaningfully different about his batted ball data, and it appears to be poor luck, as his expected average over that span was .257. Ron Washington says he wants to get O'Hoppe into 125 to 135 games this year, so the playing time's going to be there. What can we expect from a player with only 215 career plate appearances at the highest level? We'll check out this blind comparison between two catchers via the BatX projection. The first player, Wilson Contreras, is going to pick 151 on average, and player 2 is our boy Logan O'Hoppe, who's going 49 picks later on average at pick 200. The reason for the disparity in cost is obvious. Contreras has a much longer track record, he's going to bat 5th in a really strong Cardinals lineup, and his batted ball data is incredible for a catcher. Meanwhile, O'Hoppe is coming off an abbreviated season in which he had shoulder surgery and will bat 8th for an Ohtani-less Angels club. However, in terms of batted ball quality in 2023, O'Hoppe wasn't that far behind the elder Contreras brother. Contreras' max exit velocity of 117.5 miles per hour is an astonishing number, but I think O'Hoppe will maximize his power more often, as he carried a 48.1 fly ball rate in 2023 compared to Contreras' 32.9. O'Hoppe also pulls the ball quite a bit more at 56.3% compared to Contreras' 37.8% last year, and more importantly, O'Hoppe's 35.4% pulled fly ball rate would have been the 20th best rate in baseball if he had qualified. Because of this batted ball distribution, I'll take the under on the O'Hoppe batting average projection as well as the runs, since as mentioned he's slotted to bat 8th in the Angels lineup. But I'll take the over on the home runs, with 25 home runs not out of the question. Bo Naylor is a sleeper pick due to his strong plate discipline and a profile that could lend itself to the rare 20 homer, 10 stolen base production from the catcher slot, something only accomplished by JT Realmuto, Dalton Varsho, and Yadier Molina over the last 20 years. Now, a 2010 season would obviously be the top end of his projected outcomes, but over 500 plate appearances across AAA and the majors last year, the middle Naylor brother hit 24 bombs and stole 7 bases. Bo is a prototypical Guardians prospect in that he has a profile that will likely enable him to outproduce his expected numbers. His chase rate is in the 78th percentile and his whiff rate is in the 70th percentile. His max exit velocity and barrels are right around league average, but he can tap into his power more often because half of his balls in play are fly balls, and he pulls his fly balls at a 31.5% clip, well above the league average of 24.9. And while 31.5% isn't elite, that mark was the 46th best among 289 players with at least 70 fly balls tallied in 2023. However, that batted ball distribution is a double-edged sword. Because of the high rate of fly balls and infield fly balls, it's unlikely Naylor hits for an average that will help your team. He's never posted a batting average over .274 at any stop in the minors, and owns a cumulative .239 average between the minors and majors since 2018. There's also a question as to how much playing time he'll receive, as the Guardians like Austin Hedges' defense enough to the point where they gave him 650 plate appearances across 2021 and 2022. But Naylor's defense isn't a hindrance, as his pop time and framing were both in the 67th percentile, though he has shown to be weak at blocking pitches in his limited playing time so far. As of early March, he's projected to bat 6th in 2024, and all signs point to this being the Bo Naylor era in Cleveland. And even if he doesn't go 2010, the 50th percentile projections aren't bad. And if he doesn't live up to that, because of the price tag, you can drop him, no guilt, and move on. Mitch Garver possesses a lot of positives. He owns a career triple slash line of .252, .342, .483. The 825 OPS he's posted since entering the league in 2017 is the second best among catchers, trailing only Will Smith at 840 and just ahead of Wilson Contreras at 808. He set a career best max exit velocity in 2023 at 113.2 and owns a career 11% barrel rate and 44.4 hard hit percentage. And while he's been injured an awful lot over the course of his career, never topping 360 plate appearances in the season, he'll be Seattle's designated hitter this year while also backing up Cal Raleigh at catcher. That should hopefully protect Garver and keep him in that fourth spot in the lineup for the M's. However, his new home in Seattle could present a huge ding to his value in 2024. T-Mobile has been the worst park for right-handed hitters over the last 3 years with a park factor of 94 for righties. In fact, for righties, it's the most suppressive ballpark for hits, though it does have a 99 park factor for right-handed home runs, so just under league average. At home in 2023, Seattle's righties hit 231, 308, 395, and on the road they hit 259, 330, 426. That's a 53-point swing in OPS. Over the last 3 years, Seattle's righties have hit 237, 317, 412 at home, and 249, 323, 414 on the road. So the splits were more dramatic in 2023, but no matter how you slice it, T-Mobile suppresses right-handed offense. Something that I feel like I should mention, although there's no real evidence of every other year players being a thing, Garver has only been good in odd years. In those odd years, he's tallied a 264, 361, 543 triple slash, good for a 904 OPS. And in even years, he's slogged to the tune of a 235, 311, 391 triple slash, totaling a measly 702 OPS. On top of that, this is the first year of his larger contract for a new team, and guys typically hit worse in the first year of a contract. Players also see a dip in WRC Plus when they move to DH in a larger capacity, so I see why people are fading him, but even in a one-catcher league, I could see someone taking Garver where he's being taken in two-catcher leagues, just before pick 200. Alejandro Kirk has fallen down draft boards this year after being a popular pick the last 2 years. Kirk, like a lot of Blue Jays, underperformed the expectations and expected stats in 2023 after Toronto toyed with the dimensions of the Rogers Center. The one-year park factor bears this out, as the right-handed hitter park factor dropped from 101 to 98 and the home run factor for righties plummeted from 111 to 96. The park factor for lefties didn't change as much, as the 3-year rolling park factor is 97 and home run is 89 compared to 96 and 93 in 2023, respectively. Looking at the 2023 roster, a lot of the righties underperformed their expected stats and a lot of lefties overperformed. Historically speaking, park factors are more reliable on a 3 to 5 year rolling window, so maybe this is a 1-year blip. Or maybe it was an organizational philosophy change. Blue Jays righties as a whole pulled the ball less than they have in the last 20 years, with 2023 marking only the second time in the past 2 decades their pull rate dipped below 40%. On fly balls, the Jays righties had their 4th lowest pull rate over the last 20 years at 24.9%, which is exactly league average. They were only worse in 2006, 2004, and the shortened 2020 seasons. Kirk was no exception. He pulled the lowest rate of balls in his career at 33.1%. But it wasn't just a lack of pulled balls that was Kirk's downfall, as he regressed across the board in a lot of his skills. He swung at the most balls outside of the zone in a full season, and the least amount of pitches in the zone over a full season. Because of this, his walk-to-K ratio dropped from 1.09 to 0.93, which is still elite, so while there's not much to worry about there, his batted ball authority dropped precipitously as his max exit velocity, barrels, and hard hit rate were all well below where he'd been the last 2 years. Because those batted ball metrics were so much worse than where they had been, it's possible, at least to my eyes, that this was a play-through injury situation. Projections already expect some bounce back in Kirk's numbers, and if he was injured last year, it's possible they bounce back even more. Now we're having some fun, meandering beyond pick 300 to look at Henry Davis. Now this is a tricky pick because Davis doesn't have catcher eligibility yet because he only played 2 games at catcher in 2023, but the Pirates have committed to him playing more there in 2024 with Endy Rodriguez out for the year after a UCL flexor tendon surgery. Henry Davis was the first overall pick in 2021, is a fantastic athlete for a catcher as evidenced by his 73rd percentile sprint speed, carries a 70 grade raw power, has solidly average contact skills, and possesses around league average plate discipline that could improve with time. He also stands right on top of the plate and has been hit once every 24.7 plate appearances across his time in the minors and majors, which does increase injury risk but could potentially bump up his value in OBP leagues. He reportedly worked at Driveline in the offseason to help with his struggles against breaking balls, which he whiffed on at an outrageous 44.1% clip in 2023. And while spring training stats should be taken with a grain of salt, Davis does have 3 home runs this spring, including 2 coming off breaking balls. Henry should have catcher eligibility a few weeks into the season, and on days when Grandal catches, Davis could still work into the outfield or at first base or at DH, which would improve his counting numbers. Now I want to briefly touch on a couple guys who I like who should be owned in all formats. One guy from the top 100 and another from between pick 101 to 199. My favorite guy in the top 100 is William Contreras. In terms of projections, there's not a lot of difference between Contreras and Adley Rutschman, the two catchers who are most likely to lead the position in plate appearances. But Contreras is going about 40 picks later on average, and it's not 100% clear to me why. Not that Contreras should be bumped up, but in my opinion, Adley is being drafted way too high. The power upside for Contreras is so much higher, as his barrel rate and max exit velocity far surpasses Adley's. But to tap into that, Contreras just needs to get the ball off the ground more often. A decent average with high teens home runs is what you're getting here, with room for much, much more. My favorite guy to get from pick 101 to 199 is Jonah Heim. Heim is a superlative defender who has improved each year at the plate so far. The last 2 years have seen Heim get out to a blazing start just to fall apart in the second half. In 2023, it was a wrist injury that brought him down, whereas in 2022, I think it was just fatigue. I think this is the year he puts it all together. I don't see him putting up the gaudy RBI totals he put up last year, but I think this will be the best season of his career. Now before we wrap up, there are a couple of guys I want to shout out. MJ Melendez is relegated to honorable mention because he only retains catcher eligibility in Yahoo leagues. Melendez's batted ball numbers are eye-popping, and his second half numbers were extremely strong as he knocked 3.6 percentage points off his K rate. In the second half, he slashed 273, 352, 485, pacing for 71 runs, 23 home runs, and 58 RBI over 148 games. He'll get to 600 plate appearances again in 24 as he's slated to be the everyday left fielder in Kansas City while hitting leadoff. Having a guy at catcher that's playing every day is a huge boon to your counting stats. The Oakland Athletics are so bad that Shea Langoliers and his 2023 OPS of 681 is penciled in to hit 5th. The run and RBI totals are going to be hindered by this terrible team, but Langoliers will hit for power. He's the very, very poor man's version of Francisco Alvarez and Cal Raleigh, but going almost 200 spots behind those guys. He may only be a 2-category player, but what else are you looking for this late in the draft? Ryan Jeffers spiked a 359 BABIP last year after carrying a 274 BABIP heading into the season. Expect significant regression in the batting average department despite typically strong batted ball metrics, including an 11.6% barrel rate and a 42.7 hard hit percentage. The power is very real as Jeffers did spike a crazy 117.4 mph max exit velocity. It's unclear how many plate appearances Jeffers will receive, as it's possible he and Vasquez split the time behind the plate. But it feels like Jeffers should get the job since he is a prototypical Twins hitter, meaning you can expect a decent amount of walks, strikeouts, and pulled fly balls for power. That'll wrap up the catcher position. If you got anything out of it, please like and subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of the other installations on the Picks Past 200 series. First base will be up next, so come back and check it out. Thanks for stepping in the box.